How to navigate fast-growing startup culture, and can it not be toxic? We're going to talk about that today on Culture Builder Live. Hey, I am Chris Wink. I am the CEO and co-founder of Technically, the news organization with a community of technologists and entrepreneurs. For 15 years, we at Technically have covered early stage tech companies, and fast growth comes up a lot. Company culture comes up a lot. Working hard comes up a lot, but also criticisms of that often drifts into complete mistrust and misuse of employees, bad, toxic stuff. We're going to talk today about how to get it the right way, get the fast growing with the right bit of culture. We're going to talk about that with Dave Monahan. He's the CEO of Kleer. They offer a subscription-based dentistry offering. Really interesting. Dave, thanks for being here.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me, Chris.
You got it. So, all right, Dave, when I get a tech CEO on the line, one of the questions I like to do is, what the heck does fast growth mean? Because journalism land, we get frustrated that everyone just tells us they're fast growth. So what does actually fast growth mean to you? We'll start there, and then we'll talk about what it means for organizational culture.
Great. And just to give a really quick background, just so I'm going to reference some numbers, what we do. So we actually have a subscription-based platform that enables a dentist to offer, dental practice to offer subscription dentistry to their patients. So instead of buying dental insurance, you buy a subscription from the dentists themselves. Cuts out about 40% of all the overhead costs with insurance. The patient pays less, the dentist makes more. So it's a classic disruption of a middleman model. But just to give you, to sort of define, how do I think about fast growth? I think a lot of people define growth by revenue. Actually, for me, revenue is a lagging indicator of growth. The way I think about growth is that it's really about how many, the value you're creating for your customers and how quickly your customers scale into your solution. And when that scale and the number of customers coming into your solution outpaces your resourcing, to me, that's fast growth. So it's growing faster than you can sort of keep up with. And just to give you an idea, what we dealt with. So in 2018, when I launched Kleer, we had obviously 0 customers. Today we have 9,000. So 0 to 9,000 in a little over 4.5 years. That to me, we outpaced our resourcing multiple times.
Right. And so resourcing, meaning I imagine staffing, but also infrastructure, tools, the like. And that is the classic startup story of, oh, gee, golly, the market interest is there. We haven't built up systems to allow it. So give me a little bit what's the good, but also push it. What's the bad of what a fast growth startup can result in?
Yeah, so just some of the issues we dealt with, we didn't have an onboarding team for all the dentists coming in. So we had to figure out, how do you deal with dentists who want to get on the platform and we don't have the resourcing to do it. And then we would run into problems where we get the dentists on the platform and then we didn't have the support team to support them when they had questions, and so on and so forth. So the sort of the good and the bad of that sort of fast growth. The good is it's exciting. I mean, it is, every day there's something new to deal with, and it's just exciting to see things take off. It's also validating. It feels good, to sort of put a solution out there, and all of a sudden people want it, right? And they want it faster than you expected them to, and you're providing value as part of that. So that's the good part to me, is it just feels very validating, and you feel like you're doing something worthwhile and having an impact. The bad is the offshoot of all of that is you're basically creating chaos and stress, and so. Every day you're walking in, you're not sure what you're getting yourself into and what might come up. And so obviously that's a stressful situation. At times that basically it makes you sort of let down your customers at times. So sometimes you just don't give your customers what they want. And obviously that feels horrible. And I'd say the other one actually is sometimes you're tempted to take shortcuts. So it's just a super stressful situation, super chaos. And there's sometimes easier ways to do things than probably the right way. So that temptation, right, to take shortcuts, to me, is actually the bad part as well. So it's sort of the two sides to the coin. The good also is the bad.
So we technically cover a lot of early stage companies. I think we probably have a sympathetic bent to early stage companies, their leaders and their teammates, to recognize that by definition, they're consistently repositioning. They're kind of micro shifting to respond to whatever's changing in a landscape. They're figuring stuff out. And so some of that is going to result in some madness. I think some of that just is part of the experience. But like, can you do it without chaos? I mean, maybe talk to us as a news org. Like, how much should we allow for? Is any chaos a sign of distress, or is it always going to be part of the baking the bread?
My experience, so I've done 2 startups, and my short answer to can you do it without chaos is no. It's just, I think if you're doing it without chaos, you're probably not being successful, would be my guess. And so, like, I actually, my background initially was around, I'm an engineer by background. And so I actually think of startups as like an experiment, and you have a thesis, right? And so, this thesis you put into the marketplace, and you find out whether the market accepts it, accepts part of it, doesn't accept any of it, right? And then you have to adjust. And I've yet to see any solution where it was totally accepted by the marketplace. You're hoping to get partial acceptance, right? That's your goal, the foothold. And then from that foothold, you have to adapt. And that's where chaos starts to get created. One is that adaptation that you got to deal with, and the constant sort of changing things. And at the same time, if you're with that success, like I said, you have a lot of customers coming on board. So you're, how I think people would put it, like, a while ago, it's like building the plane while you're flying it. And you just, I mean, in a way, that's what you're signing up for. That's what you want to happen, believe it or not, right? It's not going to be perfectly smooth. It's not going to be accepted 100%. You want to get some acceptance and then build from there.
I trace back a lot of our modern tech startup culture coming out of the Valley and growing around the world, for sure, but certainly in big metros across the country. Like, that really happens after the Great Recession. There's this distrust of financial systems, and in the like wake of all of this madness, were all of these tech platforms and emerging technology solutions that seemed like they were offering something very different. There was a real interest in company culture, because they were demanding engineers that were very hard to hire. There was a sense that we're going to solve problems. There was something new. It felt like a new age. And so for a lot of the 2010s, when we were growing our reporting, tech startups could almost do no wrong. There was a sense that this is where everyone should go toward, that all of our solutions would be met. Something's happened in the last few years. I think the pandemic certainly was a part of that, but themes around wealth inequality, like really big societal conversations, started coming back to like reevaluating the tech startup narrative. And frankly, a lot of bad behavior, some bad apples in tech CEO land, in tech company land, I think really brought back a lot of backlash. And there's been this tech backlash. We've seen it in our reporting, that suddenly there's a sense that tech startups, that they are kind of like putting ping pong tables out, to use a cliche, and really it's because they want to overwork everyone. Do you maybe set up for us, like, can there be a healthy startup work environment that can do the hard work thing but still treat people like people?
Yeah, and I think it's a good reference, like 2010, post 2010, probably all the way up to the pandemic. Part of that was just loose money, right? There's just a lot of money floating around the system that need to be placed somewhere. And
well said.
yeah, and so people were putting money into places that really weren't adding value, and also it made it really easy to run a company without really focused on customer value. You could create something and project futures and still earn money, or still bring money in. And so a lot of things, got sloppy in my opinion. So, and I think that also bred, what you're talking about. So that stereotypical, toxic, overworking, employee sort of companies. And when I look at that, what I would say is, I think just from the very beginning, the expectations were wrong. Like, so tech startups in that sort of environment try to create like coolness, right? And try to make it like, this is a fun place to be, and we're just going to be successful. And that bred bringing people in who weren't understanding the reality of a startup. A startup is hard work. I mean, it is. If you're looking to avoid work, don't go to a startup, right? I mean, would be my sort of advice. Go to a larger company that's established, right? Who has really nice cash flow, right? Has established a solution, is just looking to plug people into the machine. startups are not only hard work, they're constantly evolving, like I said. And so you have to be willing to evolve yourself. So I think what ended up happening back then was that, and up till recently, was bad expectations about what a startup is. You bring people in who have this expectation and not necessarily willing to put the hard work in. That breeds sort of a toxic culture a little bit, where people aren't that happy, and then they're not really grounding their business on value. So what do you have to do to try to make that up? You force people to work crazy hours and really work themselves to the bone, and you're at the end of the day, just the foundation is wrong. And so I look at it very differently. We tell people this is going to be hard work, right? This is not going to be easy. We're trying to find the people who want to work hard, develop themselves, care about something, focus on customer value. And we screen for all that. And we actually, one of the first things we ask people, we have a mission. Our mission is to liberate dental care. So what are we liberating dental care from? It's third-party administrators and insurance companies. No need for it, right? So we start off typically with any kind of interview and discussion around that. And why do we care about that? And it's because everybody has oral health needs, and oral health is critical to your overall health. And so if you can't tie what we're offering, what we're trying to do, to oral health and overall health and care about that, you shouldn't come here. It's just not, you're not going to have, the passion and the sort of desire and the motivation to succeed. So that's step number one. Step number two is, in order to fulfill that mission, there's two things. One, you got to work hard while also having fun, by the way. We make sure we have fun, and we want people to have fun. And then you also have to adhere is the wrong word, but follow the values we've created as a company. And so if you sort of draw that or whatever, draw it down, like at the very base level of our organization, I think should be a part of every startup is values. What do we, stand for, right? On top of what we stand for is our mission, right? And our mission on top of that is the value we create for customers. So you can constantly drill down to values, up to mission, up to value, or to value to customers. And if you're not grounded in those things, you can drift and you can end up creating toxic work environments, and you can take shortcuts, and you can lose focus on customer value. You can lose focus on that this is hard work, right? And we want hard work. So I think that whole foundation is critical to long-term success, and also enables you to avoid the toxicity and also the crazy hours, running after something that might not be of value, right? So,
right.
So anyway, I'm not sure if I answered the question, but that's sort of how I think about it.
No, you did. Let me ask one tactical, more specific follow-up to that, and then I want to use our last couple minutes on like what tactics folks could take into, like, if they're already in startup or considering startup. You got at this a bit, but I think an extension of the criticism that tech startups got are that like, even if, okay, we're not in a pure sense toxic, we've gotten our values right, sometimes that extension can be into the hours. And I know you did just touch on it, but I want you to hit on, we've had a big national conversation around, were a lot of those 2010 decade era startups just using a lot of young people who could work any and all hours because they didn't have responsibilities. And so that is why the workforce of tech startups looked the way it did, because it just had to rely on people who didn't have other commitments. So whether parents can thrive, parents of young kids at startups, has been a big question. Whether people have different, have to care for elderly parents. And I just want you to hit on, at Kleer specifically, or just generally in healthy startups, do you believe there's a world where healthy, fast-growing startups can be places of work for parents or people who have other commitments beyond the day-to-day?
Yeah, I believe, not only do I believe it can happen, I think it has to happen, because you can't just hire people who don't have commitments outside of work, right? It's just, you're going to burn through, I don't know, a very small percentage of the population at some point, and you're not going to have a workforce. So I think we're not perfect, but I think we do a really good job of it. And we have a lot of team members who have families and small kids. And I have 3 kids. And it's like, to me, it's you don't have to work 12 hours a day to make something successful, right? So One is going back to what I talked about. You have to have the company set up the right way. You have to have your value set. You have to have your mission set, right? You have to have your customer value set. And if you have that set, it can make things much more efficient about how you do your work, because you know what you need to do and you're focused and you got your priorities. You're not wasting time on all kinds of sidebars, right? And if you have strong leaders who are leading that, again, you can stay on track. You don't have to waste time being inefficient and doing things that don't matter, don't add value. So I think that's probably step number one. Step number two, to me, we have a big thing around, we provide authority, and authority comes with responsibility. And so as a team member, you have authority over your position, and you can do things yourself, to make that, work better, to improve how we do things, improve not only your work environment, but others. But you also have the responsibility to meet goals. And so, this probably starts to feed in a little bit into remote versus sort of in-office work. We actually have, we officially are 100%, you can be remote if you want to be, but then we have in-office days on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I would say 75% of our team comes in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And why do they do that? Because you can be better at your work by being in contact with people, right? So they come in, they make, have the meetings, the in-person meetings they need to have, they make their contacts, socially, they're connected, all that good stuff. And then on their, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays are typically sort of heads down. And sort of that work, you're balancing what you need to do at work and what you need to do at home. I'm perfectly fine with people doing what they need to do at home, picking up the kids, at the school bus stop. If you had to go run an errand, you go run an errand, right? That's all fine, right? The key is that when you have your hours and your focus time, you get what you need to get done in order to hit your goals. And so we've seen people balance that out, not work crazy hours, but they're probably, my guess is, they're probably working more intensely than others when they work, right? When they're really focused on their work. And to me, that's the critical thing you have to establish in any organization is, you can balance your life as you need to balance it if you get your things done right when you need to get them done. And that's your responsibility. And we give you the authority to do that. And we've had, I don't think any complaints from anybody from an ability to manage a family and work at the same time. And we are hitting some crazy growth goals and creating a lot of value in the marketplace. So I absolutely think it can be done if it's set up properly.
Dave, I'm going to lose you. I went over a bit, but I hope you'll indulge me in like a final question. Just would love to make this a bit more tactical. Wondering what your advice you might have to someone if maybe they're starting their first role in a startup, or maybe they are already in one. Let's assume they're at a company whose leadership has established some of those values, that there are there's some degree of work-life balance, but someone's just struggling with it. It's moving a lot. We're pivoting because we're changing, we're adapting, after pandemic changes, whatever. So we're fast growing, things are shifting. I'm struggling with priorities or what have you. What are advices for tactics to navigate fast growing startup?
So I do a couple things just to make sure we're on the right path. I am a data nut. So I collect a lot of information. Where does that information come from? I talk to our customers. I talk to our prospects. I talk to our team members. I do market research. We have a lot of data on our platform. And if you described, it's a company that sort of established themselves, you have data inside your organization you can use. So what I do is just to, make sure we're heading in the right direction. And, you may be tacked a little bit here and there, is constantly be testing the customer value proposition and the things we're doing, the results we're getting from those things. And then creating a path for everybody, saying this is where we're going, and these are the tactics that you need to execute in order to support us there. So I actually have a pretty detailed sort of top down. This is where we're headed. This is why we're headed here. This is supported with all the market research I've done, and these are the things each of the team members are going to do to support that overall arching goal and direction. And I open it up to everybody, and I let them question it and give me feedback on it. And I adjust it based on that. So it's like a team. I do the work, I put it out there, and the team will comment on it and we'll adjust it as needed. Just be open about it. Do your research, put it out there, align, lead, and then put it out there for commentary and feedback.
Dave, well done. Thanks for letting me go a couple minutes over. I appreciate your time. That's Dave Monahan, CEO of Kleer, fast-growing startup themselves, but they offer subscription-based dentistry. Dave, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I enjoyed it.
Same. Everyone will see you next week. Culture Builder Live.